And for more on the conflict in Yemen, I spoke with Barak Barfi. He's a research fellow at the New America Foundation, where he specializes in Arab and Islamic affairs. I asked him if the Saudi-led coalition's bombings seem to be working and if he ever sees President Hadi ever returning to power.
Well, that's what the Saudi goal is, to restore the international legitimate government of President Hadi back to power. At this point in time, it looks like an uphill climb. The Saudi airstrikes have not been able to dislodge the Houthi rebels from large parts of the country. They are basically able to roll them back very slowly from the southern port city of Aden, but we don't think they'll be able to really push them north of Sana'a from the capital and back into the mountain highlands where they were before all this started.
How much longer do you see this happening? What is the end game here? How do you see it playing out?
This campaign is going to take a lot of time if it's going to be successful at all, and I'm very pessimistic about that. The Saudis are relying on airstrikes, and as we know from places such as Kosovo to Iraq and Syria against ISIS, airstrikes alone have never been able to win a battle. You need some type of ground component. Either you put boots on the ground from your coalition or you work with indigenous forces, and it just doesn't seem at this point in time that they have those indigenous forces that they can push the Houthis out.
Well, now there are reports that Saudi Arabia is asking Pakistan for help in this offensive. What would it mean to bring another country into this fight?
Well, the Saudis cobbled together a 10-nation coalition, chief of which is supposed to be Egypt. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has pledged to send in ground troops. He talked about creating a 40,000-man coalition, Arab coalition, to put out hotspots. But the Pakistanis have always been a key Saudi ally and will come to their defense. Specifically with air power. The Pakistanis have a very strong air force, much stronger than the Saudis, likely a little bit stronger than the Egyptians as well. So they're going to fall back on their allies that have much more experience in fighting wars that the Saudis don't.
What do you make of a ceasefire, or a possibility of a ceasefire? There are reports that the Houthis are asking for one, would consider one, but there are other reports that say that they've never honored ceasefires in the past. This is something that is being discussed at the United Nations as we speak.
Of course they want a ceasefire. Why? Because they're winning on the ground. A ceasefire means you stop the war where both sides pull back from their positions. So the Houthis, of course, they support the ceasefire. The Saudis are not going to support a ceasefire at this time. It's way too soon into the campaign. They've stated their objectives and goals, which is what you really want to do in a campaign like this. And to stop now would just show that they were weak and could not accomplish what they wanted.
What about the growing humanitarian crisis here? There are several aid groups trying to get in, wanting to get in to help all the civilians on the ground, but obviously are not able to. How does the international community address what's happening to the people there in Yemen?
Well, it's very difficult right now. Why? Because the humanitarian organizations have pulled their staffs from Sana'a, the capital in the north, from Aden in the port where Hadi's forces and supporters are being bombarded. So there's nobody there to help the people on the ground, and that is going to be a problem. If there's no ICRC, if there's no UN helping these people out, they're going to continue to suffer.
What is your biggest concern with this conflict? Do you feel that maybe there were some miscalculations in starting the airstrikes?
Oh gosh, I don't know where to start when you ask what the biggest concern is, because there are so many of them in Yemen. When you look at the geopolitical question, Al-Qaeda affiliate is very strong there, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. That is something that worries the intelligence community in the United States, the policymakers. When you look at from an internal Yemeni position, is the country going to tear apart between a northern Shi'i state and a southern Sunni state? The Sunni-Shi'i divide in Yemen isn't as wide or as large as it is in other countries, let's say in Lebanon or Iraq, but it does exist, and you have these centripetal forces pulling it apart and could tear the whole country and leave it just one big mess.